I should have known better than to think that this dinner would be different. But hope is strong. Isla has always been lively and sharp-tongued when it comes to your daughter, just like kids are when they take a test, seeing herself in the world. But lately her edge had grown cold. Dorian's presence changed in her life. Not all at once, but over time. Like dye leaking into clear water until nothing familiar was left still. I picked her up from school and told her I liked her new twist. Curl, which she didn't even notice, and took us to a quiet Italian restaurant near Fairmont and Pine. We sat across from each other with the candlelight moving just enough to make shadows. The bread was soft. Across her face, she looked so much like her mother that it sometimes scared me. Same high cheekbones, same deliberate pause before I spoke. For the first 15 minutes, I let her talk without interrupting. Milan Versace, the art of brand curation, whatever that meant. I smiled when I could, and nodded when it made sense. I sipped my water like a man trying to hold on to a piece of meat. She took a shot of her plate before she touched it. She changed the positions and turned her phone into portrait mode, but she never asked if I wanted to be in it. I watched her scroll through the filters, and then quietly laughed at a message someone sent her that I tried to reroute. Thoughts on the job we talked about last month at the green energy company near your school, Dad. I told you I didn't want to work for an eco-nerd company that uses recycled computers and likes beanbags, and you fired me. Instead of chairs. I laughed softly, mostly because I was uncomfortable. You might be shocked at how much that startup is worth now. Hit 60 million. She rolled her eyes and said, yeah, but Mom says reach is more important. Dorian's helper said the same thing. There it was again. Dorian iota, a dry piece of bread. Exposure doesn't pay rent. Isla. She picked her up to slowly twist the fork in the pasta, like a director drawing out the last notes of a song. He then turned around and looked at me. Her voice dropped to that perfect pitch that's meant to cut through, not make clear. At least Mom's new husband isn't a jerk. Loser like you. The fork hung in the air for too long. I didn't move, hadn't taken a breath. The sound of silverware clinking on other tables kept going on like background music, but something eeny fell so quietly that it didn't even make a sound. The waiter was a thin man with a tattoo of Saturn sticking out of his arm. Stopped him in his tracks near our table. The couple next to us tensed up. I didn't yell at her or scold her, reach the people she wanted to reach, or even worse, give her proof that I was unstable or angry, as I quietly reached for my wallet, pulled out my card and waved the waiter over while keeping my eyes on my daughter. That woman looked shocked. Maybe she was ready for anger or a scene. When the bill came, I paid it. There was no dessert, and we didn't talk anymore, as a fake apology. As we walked back to her room, the silence grew. A city block could have fit inside it. She probably updated her status on her phone the whole walk. She could add a comment, or send a filtered version of the night to a small group of people. She chooses who won't know, or I didn't care what had really happened, I said as I stole looks at her. The slope of her shoulders and her quiet confidence struck me. When we got to her, I didn't recognize her. Or maybe I didn't recognize who I had let her become. Building. She gave him a hug. That wasn't really a hug, more of a pat as if she were checking something off. Thanks for dinner, Dad, she said, her eyes still on the screen. I nodded. I didn't think I had much else to say. So I watched her go behind Thigh, looked through the glass doors, and saw lights on a campus that didn't need me. Then I turned around, walked back to the car, and drove home through a thick fog of silence. Every streetlight flashed by like a judgment. Every memory I had buried to keep the peace came back to me in that drive. Every birthday party I paid for, she stayed with Marissa and didn't pay attention to me. Every trip I planned, she was too busy to go. It seemed like Dorian was being talked about as if he were some kind of living upgrade. It wasn't just the wit, was the sum of 1,000 small stabs that were meant to be jokes. I rolled my eyes, and there were cold silences by the time as I pulled into the driveway. My hands were shaking on the wheel. It wasn't because I was angry, but because I knew what she had said. It was about the years I kept quiet, because I thought love meant never speaking up or drawing a line. I sat in the Twit's dark for a long time after I turned off the engine. The Twit dashboard's green light cast thin shadows over my empty space. Passenger seat. My phone rang once, probably for a bank or group promotion. Ella didn't text. She didn't call, but I didn't think she would call. I leaned back and looked at the car's roof. Let the moment sink in. That fork hadn't just stopped the table from moving. It had also broken something in me. I wasn't scared of what would happen next. For the first time in years, I was ready to be more than just a background dad and the quiet ATM. I was ready to show her what strong love looked like. It wouldn't be loud or mean, but it would be strong. It would be clear, because respect isn't optional. Just because I'm her dad, and love without respect isn't okay either. In the morning, the pain had turned into something sharper. It wasn't loss or sadness. I sat at Thigh was sitting on the edge of my bed, just outside the blinds, and looking at an old picture of Isla. Dresser from her 7th birthday. When she insisted on putting on a superhero cape over her princess dress, I felt like I could fix anything when she looked at me. Now she looked at me like I was the problem in her highlight reel. I was no longer hurt. I was done playing the nameless wallet. The noise in the background of her designer. I picked up the phone, kept my mind and heart calm, and called the bank. didn't yell or ask questions. I just gave them my ID number, confirmed who I was, and asked for help right away. Isla's student card was taken away with just a click. There was no celebration. The thing that stopped her from spending too much was the tuition payment. I didn't cancel it. I froze it. That was the important detail. I wasn't ruining her schooling. I was just pausing it and pressing hold off until the student's character met the size of the investment. After that, I stood in the hallway of my house and stared at the key hook where the extra Audi fob was still hanging. The car, her beloved, sleek cherry red Audi coupe, had been a graduation present, my savings, a prize for making it through high school with good grades, and her mother's chaos. I thought it was the right thing to do at the time, a sign of trust, but all I did was give her a throne that she now used to make fun of me from. I took the keys and drove to her college. Just me, my thoughts, and an increasing sense of calm that I hadn't felt in a long time. That was it. Years when I pulled into the university lot. I saw the car right away. IT sparkled in the morning sun, like a memorial to lost love. No one was there. The students must have still been in class or asleep. I slowly walked up to the car, hit the unlock button, and slid into the driver's seat. It smelled like an expensive clinical cologne inside that I didn't recognize. There was a Balenciaga tote there, carelessly threw a half-empty water bottle on the passenger floor, and a used lip gloss on the dashboard. A picture of a carefully planned life was broken when I changed the seat, turned the key, and drove off. I didn't speed, I did not brag or look in the rearview mirror. I just drove home in the same quiet she had brought into my life. Several months ago, the car was parked in my garage by noon. He is now hidden in a box under the utility sink. A nicely pulled tarp over the hood. I stood there for a little longer. My hand only felt like I had just sealed up something bigger than metal and rubber. I had taken something back that had begun to show how unequal our power was, not for payback nor for punishment, but for clarity back inside. I made some coffee and sat down with my laptop. I logged into her school's portal and looked over the fees summary. Officially started the freeze. My name was on the bank account.